Okay, hello everyone. Today's topic is bringing real-time AI to the core of your business. I recently predicted that one of the top tech trends for 2023 will be the democratization of AI. And even now in early 2023, we are already seeing AI democratization at a consumer level with popular technologies like ChatGPT. But we are here to talk about the democratization of AI in the business context, and more specifically, how we are on the cusp of a new generation of core business applications that are infused with AI in real time to deliver a new level of value to customers and employees. And, and how these real-time AI applications are going to finally within the reach of virtually any organization. And I am here today with Ed Anov, who is the Chief Product Officer at DataStax. DataStax helps businesses mobilize operational and streaming data to use it to fuel core business applications with AI in real time. Welcome, Ed.
Thank you, Bernard. It's great to be here.
It's so lovely to have you with us today. Where are you joining us from today?
I am in San Francisco.
Lovely, lovely. What's the weather there like?
Well, it's a lot nicer than it was a week ago. That much I can say.
Very good. So let's start with exploring what actually is real-time AI. How would you define that?
Sure. So we all are interacting, with ML and AI systems in various ways. A lot of us have become aware of that as we've been playing with things like ChatGPT, that just does remarkable things in terms of generating these textual responses. Many of us have seen things like Stable Diffusion with images. ML and AI, from a practical standpoint, is about making predictions based on a trained set of observations of things that other people have done or other actions, and it helps you predict something. That prediction may be, a set of text that gets generated, but in a real-time context, those predictions are typically what's the next product you might be interested in, or how long should a package take to arrive, or more germane to most of us, how long is it going to take my Uber car to arrive? All of those are actually powered by machine learning systems. And so real time is about doing this continuously based on all of the data events that are happening. Where is my package today? Where is your package? How long do packages generally take? And being able to go and train patterns out of that, and in real time being able to go and give you a prediction, which to us might mean a notification in your application or a recommendation or something of that sort, that influences you to make a choice or to take another action, or otherwise informs you in a way that's relevant to where you are right now. So that's what real time means. It means not something that's after the fact, not something that I have to go and have run for 5 minutes and I come back and I see, oh, here's a result. Or in some cases, maybe it runs for hours. It's happening as, it's able to participate in the interactions as they happen. And that's really important for businesses, because if you think about it, the way that businesses are built is out of a set of interactions between you and your customers, interactions between your employees as they serve the customers, interactions with vendors that are providing, the inputs to you. All of those turn into interactions. And if you can predict these interactions, you can make all sorts of really cool things happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've touched on a few examples already, but where do you see real-time AI working well today? Maybe you can give us some really good examples that brings it to life of how companies are actually benefiting from it.
Sure. We all interact with real-time AI within, uh, you know, most of the e-commerce sites that we participate in. When we go and we get recommendations, most of the high-quality recommendations are coming from real-time AI systems. When we use Netflix, for example, and you get the show that you should be watching next, that is a form of real-time AI or ML. When you go and use Uber, Uber is a great example. There's a lot of real-time ML, machine learning, in a lot of the interactions that you deal with. And those are just many of the popular examples that people would see. When your package is being tracked and you're getting alerts based on weather delays, it might be deterministic. It might be because they know that there is a storm coming in and so on, and they've actually gone and taken hard-coded business rules. If this happens, then your package is delayed. But more often than not these days, that alert that you get that your package is going to be delayed is actually based on an ML algorithm that has been trained on a large data set of events from all the packages moving through the logistics networks, and then is able to recognize the patterns and be able to predictively and proactively go and send you an alert that tells you your package is coming tomorrow versus today. So we all interact with these, and in fact, more often than not, real time is the most common form of ML that you will be exposed to. You won't always see it in that way. It's not as it's often behind the scenes.
Very good. And when we're talking about real-time AI here, lots of businesses are still in in a space where they are experimenting with more traditional AI. There are obviously some organizations that are doing this really well today, using real-time AI. I'm thinking about big financial institutions in their fraud checking. I think about companies like Netflix using it in lots of different ways to optimize streaming and so on. Why aren't more businesses adopting real-time AI?
So there's a couple of answers to that. The first thing is, when we look at those scenarios like you talked about, what makes the real-time AI possible is that you've got a set of events. And again, what is an event? When I'm talking to business people, it can be an interaction. It can be it can be a credit card being swiped. It can be it can be somebody doing something on a website. It can be anything within your logistics network on something has arrived or something has not arrived. If you think about it, everything we do in our business can be turned into a set of events. Mm-hmm. Once you do that, you end up with a lot of them. That's why we don't do this more often. And so you end up accumulating a very large amount of data. Mm. And so the first hurdle of why people aren't doing a lot with ML is that that they haven't built their infrastructure, they haven't built their technology platforms to be able to handle collecting and managing the large amounts of data that are necessary to make these machine learning algorithms work. The second piece of it is that they often don't think about their business in terms of a set of interactions. A lot of people come in they think about their business in a very high level way. They think about, business is up, business is down, but they don't actually take a step back and then deconstruct that into a set of events, and thinking in a precise way of going and saying, okay, if somebody has bought a product from me today, what are the set of events that go into that, and how do I collect them? Once you get into that mindset of thinking about interactions and events in your business, now you're starting to go and then collect that data that a machine learning model can do amazing things with. Because if we have that set of events, if we're able to go and see all the steps that all of your customers take in aggregate and individually as they go and evaluate a product, or when they do it, or where they do it, or all of those things, and turn those into data sets that you can then train a model on so that it finds those patterns. And this is really important. Many people go in and they've done previous approaches to data science where people actually try to go and manually find the patterns or create algorithms to do this. The machine learning model is able to find things that no human would ever figure out. It's simply going and doing this observationally, and then is able to go and create a model that is able to recognize and predict. And then if you tie it into these applications, if you tie it in back to those points of interaction, they can turn into things that are actually going to impact your business, because we can know that when a customer is at this location at this time of day, simply by training on this data, that we should recommend this product without ever having to have a human come to that conclusion. It can all be done automatically. And so then your business gets optimized in all sorts of amazing ways.
Very good. So we need the data, and then we need the right infrastructure to be able to store and access this data and turn it into insights using AI. What is changing now to democratize AI and bring it to the core of a business?
So I think there's a couple of different things that have happened. First of all, obviously, the tools and capabilities for collecting and managing this data are now much more widespread. There are many companies, including DataStax, the company that I come from, that provide the tools and capabilities for collecting and managing that data. That's really important. Without the data, you're not going to be able to succeed with this. And often people go and say, oh, I don't know if I have that much data. The reality is every business is generating the data. Just generally, it's been prohibitive. These tools, these technologies, these databases haven't been readily available that allow me to collect that. The second piece has been that a lot of the machine learning, a lot of the AI technology, for being able to do this in a real-time fashion also has been hard to use and expensive to use. And so you only saw it being adopted by, for example, technology companies, the Ubers and Netflixes of the world that absolutely depended on it. But now a lot of this technology has been democratized. There is a lot of open source technology that has been built for this. There's been a lot of innovation that has been done to figure out how to optimize these things so that really any company can take advantage of it. It's no longer cost prohibitive. And so you have the ability now to capture this data, and you have the ready availability of much of this technology. And by the way, the technology, the ML frameworks, the ML tooling now have actually gotten to the point where you can get very good results without being an expert on this technology. There are great off-the-shelf tools where, as long as you can get your data set formatted right and feed them into this, that you can plug them into your applications. You can plug them into your e-commerce sites. You can plug them into your mobile apps, whatever it is that you're doing. So a lot of the supporting infrastructure has grown up to the degree where it's no longer something that you either have to be, Google or Netflix or an Uber to be an expert on. There's a lot of off-the-shelf capabilities that now make this possible.
Yeah, and this is the part I'm particularly excited about, that we are at a stage now where pretty much anyone in the business has access to really sophisticated machine learning and AI enabled tools that will augment most of our jobs and can really drive business performance. So how can data engineers and data scientists apply real-time AI to more parts of their core business?
Well, I think that what's really interesting right now is that um, we're at that transitional point where the business leaders are now getting a more intuitive understanding of what happens when you apply ML to the different processes in your business. And this is a pattern we've seen time and again over the years, where there are new technology capabilities that are initially only understood by the experts. You have a very small set of companies that deeply understand this and then get built around it. But then over time, the technology democratizes to the point where mere mortals, all of us in general, are able to go and use this in more widely applicable ways. And so I think that the challenge for data scientists and data engineers. And by the way, those are those two groups work very closely together, but have very different perspectives on and responsibilities and as
Mm,
they build these things. I think that the thing that they will and they're already in general, when I talk to data scientists and data engineers, they're already feeling this. They are, the best analogy is, there was a point, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when you might have had a webmaster who had a company website that nobody in the company had ever seen. And then now, of course, we've got, most companies have giant web development teams, right? And so similar thing, you've have a lot of what's happening with AI are experiments, teams off in the corner. They're doing one particular project. They're building a lot of things by hand because they're really at that early stage of handcrafting everything. And meanwhile, what you've got is this whole tidal wave of use cases and applications that businesses want to embrace and use ML to power. And in many cases, they will need to do that because they're competing with other companies that are also embracing that technology. And so the challenge for data scientists and data engineers is going to be the same challenge we've seen in many cases within IT, where it transitions from sort of the artisanal early phase of experiments into a mainstream production case where there are many, many projects. And so my advice to data scientists and data engineers is get ready for this tidal wave. Start to figure out where can you leverage more things that are off the shelf, whether it is open source frameworks.
mhm.
Can I reuse machine learning ML models? Does somebody already trained a model that I can then train on top of my data set, or do I have to do it from scratch? And how do I leverage production infrastructure that's designed for scale and reliability and availability? Because a lot of these ML projects are no longer going to be the little experiments. They're going to be the things that are embedded into the core business activities. If it's one thing to go and do an ML experiment that maybe you present, you do a pilot project for a few customers to, and it's another thing to go and say, okay, we're going to make this part of, for example, every single time any one of our customers buys anything, we're going to go and hit this machine learning system to get a prediction or a recommendation. That there's orders of magnitude more demand in terms of scale and reliability as you make it more critical to the business. And so that's the part that I think all of us that are dealing with this from a technology standpoint, we're all seeing this coming because we've been through this with many previous waves of new technologies where that transition from the experimentation phase to the mainstream production phase, that crossing the chasm, is just going to be completely transformative.
I agree. So when we look at some of the core business functionality that we can now look at and apply AI to, are there any specific areas that you see are particularly ripe for AI introduction, or any use cases that you find are standing out for you where you see opportunities across a lot of different businesses and industries?
Yeah, so we definitely, from where we specialize, if you look at where people use Cassandra, which is the database that much of our technology is built on, it's a very scalable database that you can keep expanding. So any data set that just continually grows tends to find itself, developers and IT tend to gravitate to Cassandra for that. So the use cases that we end up seeing are those situations where the events that are core to the company's business are being generated in an ever-growing fashion. And so that can be many things. That can be logistics, that can be commerce, that is customer interactions. It can be streams of data from manufacturing systems. It can be financial transactions. You mentioned earlier, and is perennially a great example. We see this in financial services where you have a set of transactions. You want to be able to detect a fraudulent activity. Again, anything where you want to be able to go and look at a sequence of events, and you hear me use this term events a lot, but as I always tell people, an event is anything. It's any interaction. It's a customer support call. It is, something collected on a website. It is an email. It is, the sensors in your stores that people are walking into the stores and you're getting data. These all turn into streams of data. And if you think about it, all business can be reduced into a set of business activities, and each one of those business activities is a set of interactions. This is basic business management theory. Those get codified into events, and being able to apply predictions to those makes it applicable in everywhere. So when you ask me, are there any particular areas, I end up seeing new areas every day. We obviously know many of the examples that I gave you in terms of logistics, of delivery, of being able to track goods as they move through physical networks, being able to go and make recommendations to customers as people come in and investigate, examine your products, perhaps based on time of day. We have customers that are folks like Starbucks and so on that are in serving obviously in that case serving coffee and food and things of that sort. You've got a huge amount of data and events that are coming out of every customer interaction that can be used to optimize and enrich that.
Very good. So there's so many opportunities. I think we covered almost every core part of any business. One area that I'm also excited about is cybersecurity. I think that's a real use case for the use of real-time AI. So with all of those opportunities, one of the I think really important points is to approach this all in the right way, and we don't want to apply real-time AI just for the sake of it. We need to really step back, start with your biggest business challenges. This is always my recommendation to any organization that wants to apply AI, be it real time or not, and then really define their business problems, their use cases, and use it. and then align things like the data they want to collect, the technology infrastructure they need for that. What would be some of your top tips in terms of getting this right? You've seen so many different clients using real-time AI, and you see some doing it extremely well, and maybe others are struggling with it. Are there any tips that you would say these are the things that you would recommend organizations do, and maybe some of the traps to avoid?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that starting small is always a good approach for any project
Mm.
that people look at. You obviously want to avoid getting into a situation where you're boiling the ocean, you're trying to do something overly ambitious, and then it ends up collapsing under its own weight, and perhaps results in the organization learning the wrong lessons or getting soured on an approach. So I think a lot of the common sense applies when people are looking at a new technology. I think that a couple of the hallmarks of it. The first thing is you will want to go. There's two approaches to come at it, and one is from a business process standpoint to really go and think about, which parts of your business, definitely can be represented by these sets of events that describe the process. Not everything that people do in business has that nice steady stream of events. There's often a lot of things that are sort of it might be a black box, like, oh, a customer called and inquired about the product here, and they come back a month later to buy, and there's not a lot of data between that. And it might be challenging to do much with real-time AI. There's other AI techniques that might work in that type of situation.
Mm.
But real-time AI thrives best where there's a continuous input stream of events that the ML models can infer and predict from. Now, once you've sort of identified, once you've started that business process thinking, then you'll start to get into saying, okay, how can I actually start to collect data? You'll need to start collecting your data in advance of actually being able to do a lot of useful things with the models. You'll need that data set. You'll need to be able to have ideally a team that has, again, has the data that they need, has the tools and technology they need, and then some concrete outcomes, because in a lot of cases that's the essence of an ML project, is to go and say, okay, I have these data sets of previous samples, training sets of things that happened. Maybe the customers did these 10 things and bought a product, or they did these 10 things and didn't buy a product. Once I have those, I'm able to go and use those to go and train a model that predicts for me what my business outcome is.
Mm.
And so part of this is, you have to have a business technology partnership where where the business champion has thought deeply about what's the outcome.
Mm.
And the outcome, and again, this is why I call it, it is business process thinking, because the outcome is not, oh, well, revenue went up. No, the business outcome was that the customer completed a transaction. So now we have an outcome that we can then use, as something that we can predict. And too often, a lot of business leaders don't think deeply about the big business activities that then result in, oh, and now revenue's gone up. They just sit there looking at that top line and hand waving around that without thinking deeply about, okay, what are the steps that have to happen? In those cases where you see the most amazing things happening in the business technology partnership are where the business leader actually knows what it is that they want to achieve. They go and they say, okay, I want this to happen at the cash register, right? And then you now have, you now have an outcome that you can take this training set and train for. And you can say, okay, customer comes in, does these 10 things, or whatever those, actually, that's the beauty of the model. We don't know whether it's 10 things. We don't know whether it was the time of day. We don't have to know. All we need is that set of all of these events that preceded this outcome. You do that training many, many times on the computer, and it builds a model that makes it possible for that next customer that comes in. We feed that same set of collected events of whatever they did. And now we get a thing that says, okay, they might be interested in this, or they might buy this, or they might be whatever. Show them an ad, give them an offer, promote the, whatever it is. That has to happen for this type of success to take place.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's a very, very useful bit of advice for anyone wanting to apply AI. What's next for DataStax with regard to real-time AI?
So for DataStax, the great thing for us has been that our customers have already been going down this path for a while now. Remember, they chose Cassandra, which is the database that we build our products on, because it's a database that is able to go and scale out. Nothing is infinite, but there are really no constraints. The way that Cassandra is designed, you can keep on adding hardware to the database to scale it out indefinitely. And what that means is that the companies that have been thinking about the importance of their data and have been building applications that leverage data have been doing so for some time now. And what we're trying to do is to make sure that getting that data out of Cassandra into machine learning models is as easy as possible, because again, many companies that are already using Cassandra, I mentioned companies like Netflix and Uber that use the open source version of Cassandra, are already leading in real-time ML. So our goal is to take a lot of this progress that's been made in leveraging Cassandra in real-time ML and democratizing that and making it available to all of our users that already have these very large data sets of real-time data. So that's what you're going to see from us. We made some announcements. We did an acquisition of a company called Cascada that has some really unique technology for transforming the data that's in your database into something that's usable in a machine learning setting. And so you'll see a lot from us in that. It's very important for us, very important to our customers.
Very good. And finally, what are your predictions and hopes for the future?
Well, I think that we are at that point right now where a lot of what's happening with AI and machine learning, is now built on top of technology software frameworks, building blocks. A lot of it has moved. So obviously there's a lot of research and so on that's happening. But what's really cool and exciting is that a lot of this now has been turned into building blocks that people are combining in new ways very quickly. And that's why we're seeing this explosion of applications. That's why you're seeing, here's this ChatGPT that is a combination of a set of other building blocks that the company behind ChatGPT, OpenAPI, had built. You combine these three blocks together, you get this new thing. We're seeing this with all of these generative API use cases, all of the images and avatars that everybody has now in social media. Again, the reason why these are all exploding is not just because the research had been done. The research actually had happened, a couple of years ago. But what's happened has been it's matured to the point where now it's a building block. And once you have things being building blocks, now it gets really interesting for engineers and product developers and innovators to go and combine them in a bunch of different ways. So my prediction is that we're really going to go into, probably for the next few years, we're going to see rapid fire new applications. And to us, it will seem like all of this stuff is being invented really quickly. The underpinnings of all of this have actually already been invented. What's happening now is a lot of innovation is coming up with how to mix and match these things. How do I go and I take image, when I take the intersection of a language model, of being able to go and understand a phrase, and I combine that with an image model, that's where I get something like Stable Diffusion, where I can go and type in a description and I get an image. Same things with ChatGPT. So you're going to see a lot of activity around that. Same thing is happening in the real-time AI world. All of these things are now getting to the point where it becomes possible to deliver something, by assembling building blocks. And once you do that, that's where the explosions of new things happen. So my prediction is that for the next 18 months, there's going to be something new every month. It's because, a lot of stuff that happens kind of, it's like an iceberg. Most of the stuff ends up being under the waterline. And then suddenly, you see all the stuff that comes above it, and you're like thinking, where did that come from? A lot of things have been happening in the ML world under the waterline for a long time now, and now they're suddenly being unlocked. So that's my prediction. My prediction is it's going to be very hard to predict because all of this stuff is being unlocked by people being very creative and putting these things together in new ways.
Very good. Lots of exciting things happening, definitely. Thank you so much for your time today, Ed. That was super interesting. I think this whole space of real-time AI is going to become so important for pretty much every organization on the planet. So stay tuned to this. If anyone listening wants to re-listen or re-watch to this, you can always head to my YouTube channel or my podcast where you can do that, or head to my website where you can find hundreds of articles on the topic of AI and real-time data. Thank you very much, Ed.
Thanks, Bernard.
Thank you.